Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. How are you doing? Oh, big breath in. It's been quite an interesting time for me recently. Still learning, still unfolding. And I think that really just sums up what this incredible, crazy, frustrating, mind-blowing journey to self and to spirit is like. The more you know, the more you become comfortable with not knowing. And I've certainly been learning some incredible things from my students recently, and I'm trying to work out where I want to start in this sort of jumbled mess of information that I'm wanting to share with you today. I guess we'll start with money again. Now, if you're listening and you're thinking, oh my God, she can't surely be going on about money again on this podcast. But I really feel that I have had a breakthrough with it recently. I think, as you guys know, we've been exploring on season 5, haven't we? Sort of what's the difference between a cult and marketing. And I've been having some serious mirror for myself in my own journey. So I'm assuming that most of you know, but just in case you don't, the mirror is when you have a reaction to something, normally a negative reaction if we're honest, and you have to look at what that person, that action, that thing is reflecting back to you, what it's showing you. And recently I've had this real sort of visceral repulsion to people that I love very much, but to them trying to do their social media. And I realised that that is absolutely nothing to do with them. It's to do with me, and me really having that message hitting home that I can't be accountable to an algorithm, that I don't want to create content just for the sake of content creation, that there has to be something more, something magical, something in alignment. Otherwise, it just doesn't have the right energy. And it doesn't matter what I'm sharing or what I'm saying or what I'm doing. If it doesn't have that energy behind it, then I shouldn't be doing it. And I actually find a real freedom in that for me, but it's also really interesting how, I mean, you know, that friend of mine I had that was a brilliant medium that sort of developed an allergy to mediumship, shall we say, where it made her want to vomit every time she saw anything to do with mediumship because it is so hard. It's such a hard journey. Well, I've been feeling like that with social media posts. Oh God, not another video where you're going to just spout out the same old, please God, anything but that. And that's not them. That's me. That's me being lost from what, sorry, Monty's getting involved. That's me being lost from what is right to me. That's me being lost from my alignment. That repulsion is not a repulsion to the people doing the stuff on social media. It's to me and the space that I have lost from trying to play that game. So that's been quite interesting. And that also ties in with money, because somebody was asking me the other day when my happiest time in my business was. And that has led to this domino effect of realization, because my happiest time in my business was in lockdown. And that was when I was doing lives and doing readings, not for money, just for the love of it. I mean, I was doing the occasional paid reading online, but I wasn't doing demonstrations. I wasn't doing retreats. I wasn't forcing myself to big, expensive payouts for venues that I then had to sell tickets for and then had to get bums on seats for. And I think that there's a massive lesson in that every time I book a venue, I'm then sort of held accountable to the algorithm, to the money of it, of trying to get people in, trying to get people to come. And actually, maybe I just need to drift for a bit. So I've got my demonstrations books up until mid-end of May. And then I'm actually going to stop doing anything in person for the rest of the year. And I'm going to see how that unfolds. I've still got my summer retreat and things like that. But I'm going to just let everything else go. And I'm not going to book anything else in. And see what space that allows for creativity. And in the way that all of these sort of messages come in, I met with a friend. We've been talking a lot about the language of the cult, the marketing, all of that kind of stuff. And I was saying to her, I know I need money to live, but I just cannot shake the feeling, and I can't shake it, that I don't want to hold someone hostage financially to be able to speak to their loved ones in spirit. I just don't want to do that. Rightly or wrongly, I can't change that. I'm happy with charging what I charge for a reading, but I mean, people keep telling me I should put my prices up, and I kept thinking it was me. People kept telling me I have money blocks. And maybe I do have money blocks. But at the end of the day, I just want to be able to look in the mirror and feel good about the work that I have done. And I think that I had given away my power in that to all this noise about success and what success looks like. What success looks like for me is different than what it looks like for a lot of other people. And yeah, I want to be able to go on holiday and have a nice life. But I've tried doing it, looking for the finance, manifesting the money and all of that stuff. And it hasn't worked, and it hasn't made me happy. It's made me disillusioned. So maybe I just go back to the love. And if you've listened to this podcast from the beginning, you will know that I once shared the Dale Wimbrow poem, The Guy in the Glass. I have it up in my studio to remind me to stay in alignment. I play for King and Country, Proof of Your Love, every single day, to myself, to remind myself why I am doing it. And none of that is about money. So I find myself in this interesting space. Then I'm listening to Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic. I can't remember who recommended that book to me, that audiobook. It is fantastic, guys. If you want to listen to a really interesting... I love it. I love it. I can't stop listening to it. It's brilliant. And the other day, we get to the point where she is talking about money, and she said she never asked for her writing to pay her bills. She said she was working in 2 jobs until she'd released her 4th book. And she doesn't want to demand from her creativity something other than just, I'm so happy that you're working with me. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy to be in this space. And she's talking about her writing. I'm going to talk about that with my mediumship. I am lucky. I do for a living what I would do for fun in my spare time. And I say for a living when... I don't know what it is with today and the noises, but we're just going to push through anyway. Sorry about all the sound effects, guys. I do for a living what I would do for free in my spare time. And I say for a living, but I haven't actually made any money from it yet, but actually maybe I'm happy with that. Maybe I want to be back in a space where, rather than trying to be financially solvent with my spirituality, I do it because I love it, because I want it. And that's a different thing. So I've been working through that, and all of this kind of muddle that I'm working through here, so I'm explaining it to you, it all ties in. Because I was chatting to my students in the coffee and questions sessions that we have as part of the Mediumship Matters School. And when I set those up, I thought that people would be, I practice with this person and this happens, what do I do? And don't get me wrong, that does happen. But there is also this deep philosophy that keeps coming through when we're all chatting, almost taking us all by surprise. No one says, I'm going to ask a philosophical question right now and see where we end up. It just happens naturally. And because it's natural, there's a surrender, which means there's more spirit in it. But they were asking me about mediums that I would recommend. And then they were asking me about the best reading I have ever had. And I said, oh, well, that's easy. The best reading I've ever had was from my friend, the one that set me on this journey. It blew my mind. But isn't that the rub? Because I can't stop thinking about this, that the best reading I have ever had was not when I was looking for a reading, not when I'd booked a reading, and not when I had any idea of what mediumship was or should look like. I was completely mind blown by the unexpectedness of it, the profoundness of it, the amazingness of it. To hear from my grandfather, who I missed so much, was such a gift to me in a moment where I didn't know that I needed that gift. I wasn't demanding anything from my friend that gave me that message. I wasn't demanding anything from spirit. It was just there in that moment. And then I started thinking about my best readings that I have given. And the best readings that I feel I have given, and I know I've done some good ones other than these, but the best ones for me, with the best feeling and the best evidence and the most amazingness, have been when I haven't been looking. They have not been in paid sessions. They have not been in demonstrations. They have not been in demand. They have been unexpected. And I think that's something we all need to think about. What does that mean? If I, who have had loads of readings and given thousands upon thousands of readings, if the ones that stick with me for their profound, meaningful presence of spirit are all of the ones where there was no money exchanged, but also where there was no demand, there was no calling spirit in, there was no this is what I need. Actually, I tell a lie, because one of those ones was the one where I went to the toilet in London and a spirit approached me while I was on the loo, which is only, as we know, the third or fourth time that has happened to me. So that person had paid to be at the dem. But just generally speaking, there isn't this, I need spirit to jump through this hoop right now for me. And there's something about that I can't, I'm still chewing it over, but there's something about that which I think we need to talk about. Are we ruining our mediumship by demanding it? And then one of my students asked me if spirit actually want to do mediumship. And we discussed it and we were all talking and we kind of got to the agreement that obviously they do, because otherwise they wouldn't come in. They would just leave you hanging. But there is something to be discussed here between the times that spirit do it because I'm asking them to versus the time where they approach me, which is, as I've said to you guys many times, is few and far between. I wish it was more, and I can't help but wonder if there would be more of that if I just allowed it, if I allowed space, if I hadn't used up my mediumship battery demanding evidence and just went into a space where I allowed it. One of the activities I've been getting my students to do has been getting a sitter to raise their hand in a practice reading when that sitter has enough evidence that they know who they are with. Because I think that as mediums, we spend a lot of time going, that wasn't good enough, I need more, I need more, I need more. And actually that's for us. That's for us as the medium needing that ticked off the list. It's not for the sitter and it's not for the spirit. It's for us. So what does that mean about our mediumship and how we are going about and doing mediumship? I've been thinking about spirit and unfolding to spirit. So if you've read my book, you will know that I talk about blending like two coloured discs crossing over each other, and that there's no such thing as 100% blend. And I still maintain that. There's no such thing as 100% spirit speaking through you, like you are a meat glove puppet and they are just using your physical form. It's always through you and your knowing. But within that, do we believe that spirit are controlling the evidence that we get? I don't know the answer, but it's interesting for me to think about. I've always had this kind of belief that spirits sort of know the best bit of evidence to get through me and give me the best bits of evidence, like spoon feeding me, like a little baby. You know, when you rub a spoon on a baby's mouth and it opens and you put the food in, a bit like that, but with evidence. But I just wonder if I could get to a state where I would just bloody surrender, if it would all just be there, if it would all just be available. And I don't know. I keep seeing people blaming spirit for the shortcomings in their mediumship. And I have to say, I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that the wrong spirit will step forward in a reading. If you've got a mother in front of you who has lost a son and you get through her neighbour who she didn't even like that much, is that spirit, or is that, who's accountable in that space? And it's one of those things that we have to learn to work through. But I don't think that we, as mediums, should be blaming the spirit world. I think we should be holding ourselves accountable and going, oh, sorry, landed on the wrong one. Let me find the right one for you. And it's the same with evidence. I know that there's limits through us and what we can receive. But I don't believe a spirit called Greg will come in and go, G, I'm giving you a G, when they could just say Greg. If you're seeing a letter, surely you can see the rest of the word. And I know, because sometimes I go, I've got a B sounding name, so I'm not blaming anybody for that. But how much of that is actually spirit? And how much of it is us? And why is it comfortable for us as mediums to blame spirit for the wrong bit of evidence or the wrong thing that comes in, when we really should be humbly blaming ourselves? Like, what is spirit to you? To me, they don't make mistakes. They know everything that ever was and everything that ever will be. They're an intelligence. And if we know all of those things, then the only person that could be at fault here is us. I don't know. I would love your thoughts. Let's look at this together and try and work it out. It's fascinating to think about, I think. All of this. Things we think we know when we really know very little. Which leads me to something else one of my students introduced me to, which was a Channel 4 documentary about Chris Riley. And I'm assuming most of you have heard of Chris Riley. Chris Riley is a very, very well-known online medium in the UK. And I don't know about Chris's mediumship. I will tell you this, but I will tell you that I have a bit of a judgment about the way that Chris's business is run. And I don't know if that is Chris or a manager or what it is, but I don't think it's very ethical. I have had messages sent to me that have been sent from Chris Riley to people saying things like, I've got a man in spirit here, call my team of trusted psychics to find out who it is. I also know that, I'm on the fence with this one. He does lots and lots and lots of readings. But what it is it's almost like he's done 10 different videos. I know I've spoken about this before, and you are randomly assigned one of the 10 different videos. And it sounds specific because it's saying I've got an F and a connection with a K, but it is actually mass produced and mass sent out. That video is not specific. But on the flip side, he's got 1 million followers or something ridiculous, and he's only charging £30. So surely, logically, you would know you weren't getting an individual reading from Chris Riley. Surely you would have that understanding, or would you not? Because it's interesting to me. People come to me and say, I had someone online saying £20 for a demonstration, you're ripping everybody off. And I said, well, don't come if you don't want to. And I'm perfectly fine with that. But, surely a little bit of thinking about things tells you that somebody that is marketed as Britain's top medium is not charging £30 for a reading and actually spending individual time tuning into your energy with it. It's exactly the same as the free readings that I do on my page. And I had someone the other day message me and say that doesn't resonate at all. Fair enough. you know, I'm doing my best. You can't do one size fits all. You just can't. The majority of people it does resonate with. That's how it goes. It's not an individual reading. I don't charge for those. You decide whether you should or you shouldn't, what's right for you and what isn't. So I was aware of all of that stuff, and I was aware that he has a massive advertising budget because of all these mass-produced readings that he does. So he is everywhere. Ironically, because my husband and I share an IP address, obviously, my husband started getting advertising for him on his page, and he said to me, who is that guy with the cards? And I said, I bet that's Chris Riley. And it was, because he is everywhere. And I find his readings personally not very empowering, very negative. Like, yeah, you were right. They have let you down. Nobody believed you, but they're going to see the truth. And I don't mind that as a specific reading if it's going to bring healing and hope to somebody. But as a general rule, it feels a bit neg. But these are my personal opinions. I can accept that there are many different forms of mediumship for people. And as an aside, I just want to remind you all that that is the thing. You need to be looking at the mediums, working out what kind of reading you want and choosing your mediums accordingly. We don't do everything. Just like if you had a classic car, you wouldn't take it to a new car garage. You take it to one that specialises in classic cars. You need to be making choices accordingly. I know, I've said it before, but it's important. People don't get it. Anyway, so this bloody Channel 4 documentary, I think it's called I Earned £300,000 from My Psychic Abilities. And aside from Chris's psychic abilities, which I know the show was edited to make him look worse, and I know that Chris has shared behind the scenes footage of his readings unedited to show that his readings are better than what they showed. So the whole thing just gave me absolute tummy ache. It was so uncomfortable. So you've got a skeptic journalist interviewing a medium who has got a huge following and earned a huge amount of money, but who, in my opinion, hasn't done any integration. And so it's uncomfortable viewing. I feel sorry for Chris. I really do, in honesty, because there's a naivety there. There's a naivety that as a journalist is arriving, you would want to say, this is my third Range Rover that my readings have paid for. There's a naivety that you would want to say, I have clients who have booked 100 readings with me in a year. That actually sounds like you're ripping off a vulnerable person. That doesn't sound good. Anyone with a moment to think about that would say, oh God, well, that's not good. She's obviously not getting what she needs, and you should be cutting her off. I don't like people booking with me too regularly. If people ask, I say once a year, maximum of once every 6 months, if you're going to do all the work necessary as quickly as you possibly can. So it's uncomfortable, and you can understand that from a journalist's point of view, that probably isn't going to get the journalist on side, is it? And, I'm pretty sure he doesn't listen to this podcast, because if he did, he'd have half the answers to the questions that the journalist had. Like, why is it you can't get certain bits of information? Rather than just going, well, that's how it works, you could actually explain. So he's working on this grand scale with this many people, but he doesn't even know how mediumship works. He doesn't even know what frequency he's in. And it really is, I felt for him because I think to a certain extent they betrayed him. I remember him sharing on social media that he was going to be on the TV and it was going to be amazing. And I remember feeling jealous and sad that I can't get my message out like that at this moment, and that I'm having to work so hard because I won't go down what I view personally as the unethical route. To be able to get the following, to be able to get the listeners, to be able to get the stuff, I've got to stay true to me, and obviously now I'm quite relieved, because it was horrendous and really, really bad. But it's also really important to talk about. It's again this smoke and mirrors of mediumship in its truest form versus the stuff that goes out there. And the numbers aren't real. None of the numbers are real. And I mean, keep seeing people advertising, I'll help you with your social media, when they haven't got many followers. Why would you want social media advice from somebody with 1,000 followers? That's not gonna transform your business. It's so weird to me. So I guess when you're choosing a medium, you have to remember that the stuff that's put out there for the most part is the edited highlights. And don't get me wrong, I would love to just cherry pick my best bits from my mediumship and share that and look amazing, obviously, but it's also not true. And I've decided for that reason that I'm going to start doing more Facebook Lives. I did one today, and it wasn't my best work because Facebook Lives are hard. You have to wait for people to reply. There's lots of sort of people pulling at your energy, trying to get a message, trying to get a reading. And so when you're trying to work out who you're with, it can be clunky and difficult. But if we all just edit everything down to a safe place, then we're never going to really show what we can do with mediumship. And I know that you are never going to convince a skeptic. I know that. There's absolutely no point in trying to convince a skeptic, in trying to change somebody's mind. And that's okay too. It's not your job. It's not your job to convince somebody that doesn't believe in the spirit world. And you have to be happy in that place of, it's not for you, okay, that's fine. You believe you, I believe me. And I was looking through the comments on that Chris Riley video, and there were some spiritualist people on there saying, why have they gone to him and not to the churches where people are working for free and doing it for love? And I think that's a fair question. It's not a balanced look at mediumship, is it, when it's just one person? I also know that I would not want to do a reading for that journalist because because they didn't know any better, because Chris couldn't explain how it worked, had set him up to fail by having a list of things that he wanted as he went into that reading. And I can see both sides of it, and it's hard. Both sides of it are desperately uncomfortable. You've got a medium who is doing great things with a huge following, but probably needs to focus on their mediumship, their integration, sit in their learning space a bit more. But then you've also got a skeptic who's talking to a camera before he goes in to the medium's home and saying, well, if he is really talking to spirit, I want this person through. When we all know that that's not how it works, and that we can get that wrong, and that we need to be in a collaborative space in order to get it right. And I know that a naysaying skeptic would say that is hedging your bets, and all of the stuff that they, talk about, cold reading and all of that. And so we have to find that space in between it all. But you're never going to convince somebody that's not ready to believe. Because I think that it's more than the evidence. The evidence is important, but it's the presence. It's the feeling. It's the knowing you're in the company of spirit. That's what makes a difference. So check it out if you want to. It's on YouTube. It's about 20 minutes. 20 minutes of uncomfortable tummy ache for you. And it's important, though, to be asking these questions and looking and analysing. And, I know that they've edited it to make Chris look bad, but he is in a cake shop doing a reading on a waitress and says, I see cakes around you. I mean, he does say to one lady as well, do you go to the dentist? And those are bits of evidence that if you had other bits of really mind-blowing, really good evidence, they're not bad because they're not wrong, but they are evidence that needs backing up with something else. And like I've said to you guys 100 times, I don't want to be viewed on my worst readings. That would be horrendous. I understand that poor Chris was in a situation where there's a camera crew and a skeptic sat there making him sweat, and it's clearly not what he thought this thing was going to be. But also just have a bit of mindfulness that you are dealing with people who are grieving, who are vulnerable. If you were doing a documentary on a grief counsellor and that grief counsellor got in a Jaguar and said, this is my third Jaguar that I have bought from the tears of people crying in my office about their dead loved ones, it would make you go, well, it's exactly the same. And I know that people are always messaging me and saying, I pray on the vulnerable and I pray on the grieving. And I think, you have to be responsible for that. You have to be mindful of that. You have to be boundaried and professional and clear. I really do try to educate people. I really do try to let people know that if they come to my demonstrations, they're not guaranteed a message, that I can't read for everybody in the room, and that it's a night out, not a guaranteed contact. And of course, some people will read that and disregard it, but I do try and tell them. And I think we have to be really careful with this kind of thing. So really lots of stuff I'm still sort of chewing over, and I was just starting to chew it over and I had my headphones on and I was listening to Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic, and started doing the ironing. And then I thought, no, I'm going to record a podcast in this space of what's it all about? And I would love your take on it. I would love your input, because I'm just trying to make sense of it. And I've been working as a medium for a long time now. And here are the things that I can tell you for sure. Mediumship can change somebody's life, but it won't change the life of every sitter that sits in front of you. That there isn't some place that you reach with your evidence where your evidence is so good that spirits are always taken and it's always the evidence that somebody wants. You can't do it. Doesn't matter how good you are, it's never going to be good enough because of that space that you're in. That sometimes you will get it wrong, and sometimes your sitters will get it wrong and forget things that are important and should be right. That the most important energy that you need to be bringing to your mediumship, through your mediumship, is to help people. I don't believe that anybody comes to this work because they want to make a load of money. Well, obviously I've talked about fake psychic podcasts, so we know some people do. But I don't think anybody I've ever met has come to mediumship because they've seen a cash cow. I think everybody that has come here because they want to help, because they were looking for answers in a desperate moment in their life. And then when they found those answers, they wanted to share it with other people and help other people. And if that is you, then that needs to be the thing that you cling to. That needs to be the energy that you bring to everything that you put on social media, that you speak, that you do, is to help. To remember why you did this, to be of service. Service to spirit, service to other people, and of course, service to yourself. And that is where I think great mediumship will be found. But it's hard to maintain that razor-thin ledge in the world that we live in, especially when, as a spiritual person, so much of what you see and are told is that you should be aiming for monetary rewards, aiming for the big numbers, aiming to get yourself out there more and more and more. And it's all fake, all of it. So all that you can do is your best and the right thing, so that when you go to bed at night and you take your makeup off, or you're cleaning your teeth and you look in the mirror, you can hold the eye of the person that stares back at you and know that you have done a good job, an aligned job, and known that you have represented your own soul to the best of your ability. Love your comments as always. WhatsApp me, send me an email. I'd love your take on it. And maybe after I've done this experimental 7 months and finished 2024, I'm going to tell you the figures. I'm going to tell you the difference and the reality, and if it made any difference, if it's done anything, and how I'm feeling. And obviously I can only talk from my own perspective and my own understanding, but I don't know if it is a money block. I think a money block is a really easy thing to say to somebody to make them accountable. If you're a coach and you say to somebody, you've got a money block, then you're not really coaching them. You're just telling them that they've got a problem. I don't know. I just think in mediumship, there's more to it than that. There's the service aspect, which cannot be denied. And there are lots of ways that you can make money and finance your life. But just like Elizabeth Gilbert says, should you be asking that from your passion? Should you be demanding from your passion finance, comfort? Is that what creativity is for? Is that what you should be doing with your art? Do we think that the most beautiful works of art that we all admire have been purely made for the bottom line? Or have they been made for the artist to express the song that is in them? And if the song that is in you is mediumship, are you expressing it through the energy of what you want and what is in alignment to your soul, or through what you are being told you should be doing on social media and in your life and from other spiritual people? And the thing is, they could be right for them. You've got to find what's right for you. I am not saying that this way is the only way. All I am saying is that there has been this feeling like shuffling off a cement coat of, what if I just did what made me happy? What if I just did the mediumship that I want to do because it lights me up? What if I just explore the ideas that are coming in that are interesting to me, and I stop trying to worry about whether it's commercial enough or whether it'll make a good soundbite on Reels or whether people will listen? What about if I just allow? And here's an interesting thing, I can tell you this. So at the moment of recording this, it's the 19th of February. I know that this episode is not coming out till the 10th of May, so it all may have changed by then. But I have not released, as of this point, any podcasts in January or February 2024. I think my last one was the month ahead reading on the 1st of December. So that's 2.5 months with no podcasts. And I've let it go. I haven't thought about it. I haven't advertised it. I haven't pushed it. And what has happened in that time? My numbers have remained the same. The number of listens I'm getting a month have remained the same with no new content. I have been number 6 in the Australian chart, number 10 in the US chart. I have been top 10 in the UK chart. I can't remember where I got to in that one. So, with no advertising, no new episodes. So doesn't that tell you something about when you let it go and properly let it go? It gives it space. And you know, this season 5, I hope you're loving it, because I'm loving it. I've recorded all these episodes and I feel like I'm not forcing it. I'm being inspired by it, and it feels better to me. And so endeth the lecture. Let me know your thoughts. I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you again next week. Thanks as always for listening and going on this bumpy journey with me.